Okay, Shalom Akim, Kahalaim Na, Yahabashim Yashar, Bashim Kodash, and double honors to true and apostles, Thadi Yashar for the strength in order to make this video, and Yaratazar they also understand what I teach also in these videos as well. This is the part 2 to the previous video, which I named Syria, Iran, Russia, China, and then I summarized it as a conflict of incentives. So really the name of it is really conflict of incentives by, all these other nations, but specifically Syria, Iran, Russia, and China, and Yaratazar, which means Yahweh willing. In the previous video, that was pretty much the establishment of how the Syrian conflict began, which again coincides with the Matthew 24 verse 6 to 7 scripture on rumors of wars and wars, which we'll hear of. And that is a war of which is literally happened that we've heard that is happening. So that fulfills prophecy too. But all of these, as I mentioned in the previous video, all of these wars are just simply warm-ups to the World War III, the third woe, as I mentioned within the scriptures. Let me just get that as well. The first and second woe cometh quick. Wait, hold on. The third woe, in fact, third woe cometh quickly. Because that's the major world war of which all the heathen nations will gather at the valley of Yahweh Shaphat, which means the Most High's judgment, Yahweh's judgment. So Revelation 11 and 14, it says here, Revelation 11 and 14, the second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. That second woe, the first and the second woe are reference to World War One and World War Two. Woe means destruction. And World War One, of course, there was a lot of destruction during that war, as well as World War Two, which there was a lot of destruction as well. But World War Three will be the last one, the ultimate cleanser to reset everything before Yahweh shall then come and of course set up his kingdom, man. Which really, that will be the diminishment of Babylon the Great. That will be the main nation that will be brought down low, that Yahweh Shem Yahshua will humble, that the Most High will bring down. So, as Babylon the Great is where Esau's military might is predominant in. Then you got the UK, London specifically, if not, what do they call it? The City of London, which in itself is an entity, of whom is can be regarded as the financial hub of the beast system, man. Of Esau Edom, to be more simple with it, as well as the Vatican as the religious side that Esau uses to control people too. Which all these other religions are rooted in. But anyways, that's another topic. Let me get to the point. This video is really focusing on the incentives of these other nations, man. Specifically, Iran and Russia. But yeah, let's see, because I did forward to the main part here to Zod, and I'm gonna bring out some precepts as well. So as the video goes, it's how Assad's fall, which was a former leader of Syria, as mentioned in the other video, fall transformed every other world conflict. So how Syria really impacts the other nations too, and how they got to move. And this is by a guy named William Spaniel. Just, one of those channels that I found whilst doing research on the topic, really. So, we've got to stay up to date with this type of information, because we know it still fulfills prophecy, even though it may seem small, perceivably, in the grand scheme of things. But this is all a warm-up, trails to lead to the major one, which is the Third World War. So let's get it, and then let's see what's up.
To modify some lists first. And that does it for the internal politics of Syria. Thus, we can pivot to all of the external consequences of the fall of Assad. And there are a bunch of interesting things to report on that front. Let's begin by diving into Iran's situation. And suffice it to say that the past 14 months have been bad for Tehran.
And Iran as well, by the way, they're the ones who also help fund all these other militia groups. I think that's what they call them. When the Hamas was starting and Hezbollah was another group as well when they were fighting Israel. Iran is helping to fund them as well. I know, especially Hezbollah. So, I think this guy's even going to mention it too. So with let me play Anyaratuza. I'm gonna talk on it as well.
The primary modern geopolitical strategy for Iran has been to establish an axis of resistance to fight back against Israeli influence in the region. Among its members were Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthi rebels in Yemen, and, yes, Syria. Well, let's go back to October 7th, 2023. That marked the beginning of the war in Gaza. In the 14 months afterward, Israel has systematically destroyed Hamas. Meantime, Hezbollah thought it would be a good idea to open up a second front while Israel was busy in Gaza. But Israel much more efficiently dismantled the leadership and ranks of the organization. I will never look at a pager the same way again. This also facilitated the rebel offensive in Syria. In the past, if rebels threatened Damascus, Hezbollah would have streamed across the border from Lebanon to quash the attack. But months ago, Israel eliminated that possibility, and thus in came the rebels. Consequently, Iran is facing a ratchet effect. Previously, Iran supplied Hezbollah via land routes through Iraq and then Syria. But going this way is no longer an option. A weakened Hezbollah has somehow become even more enfeebled. Does that mean that Iran and everyone else is about to witness the end of Hezbollah? No. Resistance is an idea that will not die easily. Even if it is not Hezbollah in name, another group will arise to fill the ideological vacuum. Actually, that is how the Iranian-sponsored Houthis have come into prominence, using the war in Gaza as their rallying call. And that is also the only real bright spot for Iran over this period, as the American-led Operation Prosperity Guardian has still failed to return traffic around the Bab el-Mandab Strait to normal levels. Moving on, let's stay in the region and turn.
Yeah, so based on just Iran, they would use or leverage Syria as simply a route to supply their militia groups, man. For that little war. Well, I say little war, but yeah, for that battle that's going on was going on or is still going on really between Israel and Hezbollah right now, because it was Israel and Hamas, and then it's Israel, and then between Israel and Hezbollah, which is the group that really replaced Hamas. So of course that was one of the incentives of Iran really being cool with Syria, being allies with Syria. Hence why they were backing what's his name? The ruler Assad. I think Bashar al-Assad, that's his full name or something like that. But anyways, the point is, Assad, he was supported by Iran, man. Because of course Iran would favor that, since they could deliver, military tools to Hezbollah group in order to use for their fights. Because it was all about ideologies, man. The groups that have the same ideologies, they'll support each other. Nations will support the groups of which share the same ideologies. But anyways, on to, Israel right now. Where you got so-called Amalek over there. And let's see this.
Turn to Israel, which has been involved in two major operations. The first is along the Golan Heights, emphasis on heights for reasons that will become clear in a moment. It sits towards Israel's northwest. Israel seized about 2/3 of the region during the Six-Day War way back in 1967, but the international community still recognizes it as Syrian territory. The obvious upshot for Israel is that taking the heights adds land to the country, plus that land also holds a fair amount of water. But the main benefit of possessing the Golan is the heights part, because, as everyone from Mustafar to Damascus knows, having the high ground is key to military victory, here as a consequence of helping propel artillery a greater distance, as well as being a better lookout point. It therefore acts as a buffer zone to the rest of Israel. Well, I heard Israel likes buffer zones, because they appear to be creating a buffer zone for their buffer zone, so they can buffer zone while they buffer zone. In meme-free language, That means that Israel is pushing eastward from its existing positions, minimally. How far Israel intends to go with this remains unclear, though.
Would you look at that? You were right about the green. Looks great with the countertops.
Of course it does.
This remains unclear, though. Up a bit north, Israel's other major move was to sink Syria's naval fleet. Combined together, what we are seeing is reminiscent of Russia's response to the Ukrainian Maidan Revolution back in 2014, when the Kremlin annexed Crimea and seized Ukrainian naval assets. Basically, both looked to find a way to convert temporary civil chaos into some long-term gains. Today, this process is undoubtedly upsetting the Syrians who will take part in an interim government, but they lack the capacity for an organized response at the moment. The nuance that Israel's targets were technically Assad's assets probably does not fly for what is supposed to be the new head of the Syrian state. Speaking of Russia, one side note here. In the recent past, Israel has played nice with Moscow, in part because of trying to balance escalation concerns in the Syrian civil war. This has resulted in a rather tepid coordination between Ukraine and Israel, despite the parties' simultaneous involvement in two separate wars, both underwritten by a common major power patron. But with Assad gone, some of that incentive is off the table, so we will see if the policy changes accordingly. You know what? We might as well stick with Russia and the...
Yeah, prior to Russia though, but the main point with Amalek over there is that they want to take, the Golan Mountains, if I recall correctly. What you mentioned here, the Golan Mountains, which is where they say there's a good water supply. That's one of the alternative or byproducts of taking that land, which is again near the western side of Syria, if not southwestern side of Syria, and of course more of the northern side of Israel as well. In fact, hold on, just to make sure that I ain't tripping. Hold up. So Syria and Israel map. Let's see that specific region, man. Hold on. So you got Turkey there, you got Syria here, you got Lebanon there. Hold on, then you got Israel right around here. Obviously it's a bit blurry. Let me try to get another one. Something a bit more clearer. Yeah, like this. So yeah, obviously Hamas, they were fighting over the Gaza Strip over here in this area. Then, hold on, let me zoom out a bit more. Then you got Israel forces, close to Syria. If not, I think they even went into Lebanon as well. A few more fighting within this area. Because the guy mentioned the Golan Mountains. It's around here, north of Lebanon, just near Syria. Because I did say it's the western side of Syria, along this white border here, or northeastern of Israel. But I wanted to check whether it's northeastern Israel or northeastern of Lebanon. But most likely it's northeastern of Lebanon, because the Israeli forces are more prominent there as well. So Hamas was fighting here, Gaza Strip. You got Hezbollah, which are more predominant in Lebanon. They were fighting around this area too, So right now we've got a Syrian conflict that's going on. Turkey is just above there, just above Syria really. And, you got the rebel forces acting up there. But the point is, what I want to make is that Israel, they want to get the Golan Mountains, which again, I would say are around the northeastern side of Lebanon, in order to have a more stronger military advantage. Again, another byproduct would be cleaner water. Well, I say cleaner water, but yeah, better quality of water there from the mountains too, in order to to get that there. But we know the main reason is the military advantage. Anyways, that's just a little understanding there. Let me get something. Let me play it again and then see what else.
He still recognizes it as Syrian territory. The obvious upshot for Israel is that taking the heights adds land to the country, plus that land also holds a fair amount of water. But the main benefit of possessing the Golan is the heights part, because, as everyone from Mustafar to Damascus knows, operations. The first is along the Golan Heights, emphasis on heights for reasons that will become clear in a moment. It sits towards Israel's northwest. Israel seized about two-thirds.
So that means it's around Israel's northwest, not really Lebanon. So therefore, it would be around kind of this area here. You know, Israel's northwest, you know, north and then west. So just a peak of it right there. Now let's get back.
Towards Israel's northwest. Israel seized about two-thirds of the region during the Six-Day War way back in 1967, but the international community still recognizes it as Syrian territory. The obvious upshot for Israel is that taking the heights adds land to the country, plus that land also holds a fair amount of water. But the main benefit of possessing the Golan is the heights part, because, as everyone from Mustafar to Damascus knows, having the high ground is key to military victory, here as a consequence of helping propel artillery a greater distance, as well as being a better lookout point. It therefore acts as a buffer zone to the rest of Israel. Well,
yeah, so that's the part of the incentive there, man. And you gotta realize all of this that's happening is all by the hand of the Most High, man, Yahweh. Ultimately, you know, He's the one who orchestrate these the vessels of these kings and rulers in order to make the actions that would further the progression towards World War III, man. Every single minute action is orchestrated by the Most High, Yahweh, ultimately. That's why we have to fear Yahweh Bashim Yashai, man, because we're talking about the first and the second in command of the whole universe, of all creation. You know, through them, that's how these prophecies are rolling, ultimately. And let me get a precept on that as well. Daniel 2 and then 21. This is Daniel 2 and 21. It says, and he changeth the times and the seasons, he removeth kings, and setteth up kings. He giveth wisdom unto the wise, and knowledge to them that know understanding. So of course it's the Most High's will. He chooses who's going to be in rulership. He's going to be the dominant ruler for a season. And when that dominant ruler will be put down, and he's the one who orchestrate when another one comes in. You know, which ultimately, the same way the scriptures talk about Esau's the end of the world and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. You know, that relates to this scripture here, Daniel 2 and 21, where he says he changes the times and the seasons. You know, there's a season for Esau, Edom to be in rulership, to be in power, and there's an eternity for Jacob to be in power, man, where Yahweh's kingdom will be established, man, where Yahweh will be in power once more. You know, the reason why I say once more, you know, for those who can understand reincarnation, he was in power back in the day, well, in his many lifetimes, such as when he was in the form of Solomon, you know. Pretty much he had the taste of, you know, the riches of the world, as well as he knew how to base as well, man, in his form as actually Yahweh, you know, where he was actually called Yahweh and not Solomon, you know, and other forms like King Melchizedek. But, you know, that's for one who's blessed with the understanding to actually receive that. But the point is, there's a season for Esau to rule, and that season is running out. The last sand particles of the hourglass container, they're about to drop, man. Esau's time was running out. So yeah, Daniel 2 and 21, and he changeth the times and the seasons, he removeth kings, and setteth up kings. He giveth wisdom unto the wise, and knowledge to them that know understanding. And that's really talking about the saints of Yahweh Shem Yahshai, or Yaratazar. You know, as we always like to say, the elect of Yahweh Shem Yahshai, which we hope to be part of. You know, he giveth wisdom unto the wise, and knowledge to them that know understanding. You know, and we know that we are the wise because we're the ones of whom Yahushua has revealed the true understanding of the scriptures, man. Remember, the wisdom of the world is foolishness to the Most High. And only those of whom obey his words are considered as truly wise. Hold on, foolishness. Well, let's see if that one makes it come up. I'll read this one. So 1 Corinthians 1 and 21, for after that in the wisdom of the Most High, the world by wisdom knew not the Most High. Because yeah, they go about through worldly wisdom, man. They don't go about spiritual wisdom. It pleased the Most High by the foolishness of preaching to save them that believe. Actually, let me get the other one. 1 Corinthians 3:19, for the wisdom of this world is foolishness with the Most High. For it is written, he taketh the wise in their own craftiness, man. You know, so obviously those who think they're wise in the world, you know, Yahweh Shem Yahshua has something that will surprise them, man. That your knowledge of the world is really foolishness. And you know that folly does not last as long as wisdom. You know, it quickly diminishes. There's many precepts on that on Proverbs. But anyway, going back to the topic though. So Israel's incentive, obviously they want to get the Golan Mountains, which is where it will be a military advantage for them. You know, in of course, as the guy said, a buffer zone, which is really as a protection for them in for Israel. But yeah, that's one incentive. I know we had the other one, which is based upon Iran, because of course they want to get supplies to Hezbollah, which is a militia group that Iran supports. You know, same ideologies there. So these, again, this video is just mainly about the incentives, man. You know, you got Iran with their incentives. Now you got Israel with their incentives as well. You know. So of course now we're gonna go to Russia's one as well. Let me see this. Was it Ukraine's? Actually, no, it's Russia's first.
One side note here. In the recent past, Israel has played nice with Moscow, in part because of trying to balance escalation concerns in the Syrian civil war. This has resulted in a rather tepid coordination between Ukraine and Israel, despite the parties' simultaneous involvement in two separate wars, both underwritten by a common major power patron. But with Assad gone, some of that incentive is off the table, so we will see if the policy changes accordingly. You know what? We might as well stick with Russia and the fallout that the Kremlin is having to deal with. The starting point is along Syria's Mediterranean coast, where the Tartus naval facility and Hamaim air base are. During the Syrian civil war, the Kremlin essentially intervened on behalf of the Syrian government, especially by engaging in air campaigns, so that the Russian armed forces could use Syria as a logistical hub. But to understand their broader relevance, we must turn to Africa. The Africa Corps provides regime security to a bunch of countries there: Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Equatorial Guinea, Libya, and the Central African Republic.
These can be likened as allies of Russia.
Successful operations in those countries require consistent resupply. That would be a task for the Aleutian IL-76 airlifter, which usually takes a pit stop in Syria before heading to Africa. The good news for Russia is that the IL-76 has the range to go nonstop all the way from Russia to Africa. The bad news is that it cannot go most of those places while holding cargo, which kind of defeats the whole purpose of the enterprise. With that in mind, Libya would be a sensible alternative site if Syria is no longer an option. It is a close enough middle point to still act as a logistical hub, and there are enough friendly elements there to spare some coastline and flat inland ground. The problem with Libya is that getting bases to the same level as Syria's will take years, at a time when Russian resources are otherwise being funneled northeast of there. Meanwhile, Libya is not exactly a portrait of stability, creating a potential situation where Russia invests untold rubles only for the situation on the ground to become untenable. So, is it possible to go elsewhere? Yes. Is it a good idea, though? Maybe not. Meanwhile,
Yeah. So it's simply a matter for Russia's incentive, in terms of supporting Syria, mainly Assad, the main leader there, is so that he can get some refuels for delivering resources to his African allies, man. Which is where they've got other Russian bases as well, military bases in those African so-called African countries, man. You know. So again, this all goes down to, okay, what does each ruler want? And then what can Syria offer to them ultimately? And then if as countries start to realize, okay, this ruler or this nation wants to hold more resources or more power over this certain country, which is quite useful to the other countries, then that can be a trigger for the war as well, man. From a proxy war to eventually to the Third World War, man. Third World War. In other words, the Third World. But again, we always got to remember this. Man's goings of the Lord. It's the Most High's will. That's why all of this is playing out. But we're not supposed to fear. As it says in Matthew 24, as I mentioned in the other video. Probably get it again. But let's get this. Proverbs 20 and 24. Man's goings are of the Lord Yahweh. How can a man then understand his own way? It's simple. The Most High, as the scriptures say, man devises the thoughts, but let me even try to get that one as well. Man divisive thoughts. Gotta be quite precise when you're typing this thing as well. Man divisive. I'm gonna try to get to the other translation and then. Actually, no, that wouldn't work. Hold on. Or is it devises? I don't think it's divisive. Divisive thoughts. If it ain't there, then I might have to search out, mate. Okay. So, man deviseth his way. So Proverbs 16 and 9, a man deviseth, yeah, okay, Proverbs 16 and 9, let's get that then. 16 and 9. So it says Proverbs 16 and 9, a man's heart deviseth his way, but the Lord Yahweh directeth his steps. So of course, you may plan out to do something or intend to do something, but the Most High is the one who actually directs your steps, man. You really lead your actions for what you take for that day. If it may go well with your plan, then it was the Most High's will at the same place. Which he's the one who puts the thoughts in your heads, by the way. He's the one who puts the thought in your head. So if it does happen, then, that's the Most High's will. If it doesn't happen, then of course it wasn't the most, well, I say it wasn't, but it was the Most High's will that your plan would not work. If your plan worked for that day, then it was the Most High's will at the end of the day for it to actually work. So it depends what Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, what Yahweh wants your steps to be directed as. So, man's heart, referring to the mind, deviseth his way. So you can think about all these plans and, to do and whatnot, but the Most High redirects the path, man. You can go ahead, do your thing, but at the end of the day, it's the Most High's will that plays out. That's why certain things you may try to do, you can't do them because it's the Most High's will that's blocking you. So that's really the point there. Now I said I was going to get Proverbs 20 and 24, which links to that. You know, a man's heart deviseth his way, but the Lord Yahweh directeth his path. And yeah, that gets involved with that relates to the rulers as well. You know, hence why this also applies to them too. Proverbs 20 and 24, man's goings are of the Lord Yahweh. How can a man then understand his own way? Yeah, exactly. The Most High is directing Putin, and all these other rulers to actually make the decisions they're making and take the steps they're taking in order to further the war, you know, get that fire going, metaphorical fire for the literal fire, man, which is where they're going to start sending nuclear missiles to each other, but mainly to Babylon the Great. All right, let's see this.
A naval base ought to be a lower priority. There is a certain irony in...
Hold on. I forgot my point literally, man. You know, when you pause the video and then you have to attend to something quickly and then you come back. But anyways, the point really is that each nation has their own incentive, and with these incentives, they'll collide with each other, thus leading to war, and that will be a contribution to the third world, man. You know, which at the end of the day, all those missiles would be directed to Babylon the Great. You know, somehow, some way, all of this would just lead to everyone getting frustrated, all these other nations getting frustrated and sending all their military might, again, the nuclear missiles, straight up to Babylon the Great, man. And hence why it's going to be a destroying mountain, as it's mentioned in Jeremiah 51 and verse 25. You know, the burnt mountain, rather, that's the term.
Putin, a leader who looks to Peter the Great's accomplishments aspirationally, losing a warm water port. But a naval presence in the Mediterranean is a luxury good, and the task in Ukraine ranks as the greater priority. Now, it remains possible that Russia will find a solution to keep the bases in Syria. And indeed, there are reports of negotiations between the parties to that effect. But the problems here are manifold.
This is Amazon's new money-making app. Let me show you how it works. That app is called Audible.
The problems here are manifold. Whom exactly among the rebel groups will have the final say about the bases? Will those groups even be the least bit amenable to hosting Russian troops after they held up Assad for so long? Will they engage in any serious conversations at all while Assad safely resides in Moscow? Will Russia, a country that knows full well that agreements are not worth the paper that they are written on, anticipate that Syria will follow through, rather than push Russia out by force once the collective rebels are organized? And supposing that the Syrian government is on board, will Russia want to pull back anyway, out of fear that random militant groups will attack them?
The thing is, what's actually happening right now, you know, this guy, can't zoom in, but the video on the video thumbnail furthest to the left, where it says Syria's future, you know, I can't zoom in, that's why I'm trying to describe it. You know, the name of the rebel leader of whom took over Syria currently, right now, is Abu Muhammad al-Golani. You know, of whom he's the one in charge of what's the rebel group? The rebel group is called HTS, which is like Hayat Tahrir al-Sham or something like that. You know, but in short, HTS, that's the name of the rebel group that he was a part of. So they took over Syria and of course forced Assad to then flee the place, to then seek refuge in Russia, Moscow. But interestingly enough, they didn't attack any Russian bases, man, whilst they were there. They kept them. And obviously this is a strategic move so that when I say he, I'm talking about Abu Muhammad al-Golani, or for short al-Golani. He would want help and aid from Russia, man. You know, with their military might and whatever military aid that they can provide, that Russia can provide to Syria, man. But of course, Putin is still in this state to make a decision. But anyways, these are just getting into the intricacies of war and, you know, yeah, just the intricacies of battle, man. You know, politics and whatnot, and the conflicts of incentives. You know, as I named it. But anyways, going back to Israel here. You know, Amalek really. You know, just the end of this video, because I know they were measured with their own incentives to get the land of or the mountains of Golan or something like that. Which, by the way, the name Gulani, yeah, I think the guy who even he's the rebel leader, you know, Mohammed al-Golani, actually comes from the mountains of Golan or something like that. His name is related to that. You know, anyways, that's just a little fact there. But, you know, those lands that Israel trying to get, you know, which is quite a struggle for them because of the Syrian rebel groups and whatnot. Hezbollah was also a hindrance for them too. But what's I even gonna say about them? But yeah, they're going through their own conflicts, man. You know, Amalek over there ain't having too much of a good time. And yeah, that's through the Mosai as well. That also provides, that also supports prophecy too. So Exodus 17 and 16, for he said, because the Lord Yahweh hath sworn that the Lord Yahweh will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. So of course, Amalekites in that land, they ain't gonna have peace. They're flipping Hamas on them. You had Hezbollah on them. You know, which Iran is obviously funding these groups as well. You know, now you got which eventually will probably be the other Syrian rebel groups that will be on them too. So, you know, Amalek ain't having too much of a good time, man. Mosai said Amalek, he will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. And of course, he will use different nations in order to do that too, man. So they ain't gonna have it sweet. You know, they ain't gonna have it peaceful, man. They're gonna be in that state of chaos for a time, man. Time and time again, repetitively. See, anyways, that's really the point right there, man. So Russia's got its incentives. You got Syria. No, not Syria. What's it called? Well, yeah, technically, yeah, Syria. You know, the actual rebel leader, as it says here, Abu Muhammad al-Golani. You know, video furthest to the left. He's got his incentives. You got Iran with its incentives as well. You know, to deliver military force to military aid to these little militia groups like Hezbollah and Hamas. So yeah, man, all these incentives will then conflict with each other, then thus adding more fuel to the fire for the third world to come. So remember, wars and rumors of wars, but we don't have to fear these things because, you know, they have to come to pass anyways. And at the end of the day, all that will just be the heathens clearing up themselves at the end of the day. Ultimately, they'll clear up themselves at the valley of Yahweh Shaphat. So that's going to be great clearance, man. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Nyaratas, I'm going to do a part 3 after as well. So yeah, Shalom, Yahba Shimesha Brakatha, Kahalaim La Yahba Shimesha Basharaka Kudash, and double honest to Games and Apostles, Thadia Shah for the strength in order to make this video. So again, all of these are just, pretty much this video is just me getting into the intricacies, the details, which again will lead to that fuel added to the fire to result to World War III, man. That's literally what it's about, which focuses on the incentives of these countries. So yeah, Shalom, Yahba Shem Yashar Baraktham.